Alex Mark, comic artist and illustrator. I'm an artist and an illustrator. Comic artist, as well as illustrator of things that aren't comics. Anyway, I draw pictures, and welcome to another studio vlog. This particular studio day was pretty straightforward. It felt kind of nice though, because if you saw my last video, I spent most of it on like packing Patreon orders and stuff, and I didn't do much art, like making art. And this Thursday, October 6th, I drew pretty much all day. It was pretty nice. Yeah, so I think at the end I share kind of my comic update, where the comic stands and stuff. But one of the things that I did this Thursday was work on my Inktober illustrations. I have a video about what I'm doing for Inktober, so you can go watch that if you want the details. But yeah, essentially I'm just doing marker illustrations, 31 marker illustrations for Inktober. That's the long and short of it. So I worked on a couple of those on Thursday, and then I did some inking, I did some shading, and I did some thinking. I think I'm gonna take a kind of the next step in leveling up my comic production. So I have an assistant who comes in and flats the colors for me, but I talked to him a little bit. It's my nephew, so we chatted for a little bit about the possibility of him learning to do a little bit more in the comic, and I think I'm actually going to teach him how to shade. I feel a little bit nervous about this because I don't actually like teaching that much. I get worried when I teach anything art related because I just feel like I can't teach it all. And every time I start teaching, I'm like, oh, here's another thing you need to know, and another thing, and another thing. And no matter how much information I share, I'm always thinking of something I should have taught them, and I might ruin their art career if I don't teach them. But in this case, I kind of realized that while my assistant, it is really helpful to have my assistant do the flatting, that's actually a pretty small portion of what goes into the comic. When you think about lettering, inking, then there's flatting, and then shading, and kind of what I would call atmospheric effects with the lighting and stuff, and then lettering, formatting for webtoons, and then publishing. So flatting is actually one of the fastest, shortest steps in the comic. So I was thinking about that on Thursday because my colorist is now actually caught up to me. I don't have any more inked pages for him as of right now. And where was I going with this? Oh, so essentially I was like, if he actually could take on a little bit more of the production, not working longer hours or anything like that, but if there's some part of the production process that I could pass off to an assistant where it doesn't have to have my style and it doesn't need necessarily all of my expertise, and he could do that, that would be great. So shading, I think, is kind of the next step. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to teach him to shade because I don't want it to be like like he needs to spend weeks practicing to shade like me. My challenge for this weekend is essentially to create a style guide for my colorist so that he knows how I personally shade. And I think it's doable. What I'm planning to do, basically, is draw a 3D model. This, shows him how I picture my characters in 3D space. And because my shading is not complicated. It is not complicated. I think I have a way of making it look pretty sophisticated, but it is not. I specifically designed a way of shading that is pretty quick and easy to repeat so it can be consistent. But yeah, for some reason I felt nervous about this, partially because, I'm just wondering if I can teach him in an efficient, way. Like, I don't want to waste a ton of time just like all of a sudden teaching him everything I know about art. But so there's that, like, can I do it? But then there's also sort of a weird feeling of like letting go of another part of the comic process that like potentially I just won't do very much of. Feels a little weird. I now understand there are a couple artists that I remember reading about. Hergé is one of them, the creator of Tintin, where he was very controlling about certain aspects of comic making, that like there are certain things he would not let his assistants do. And I used to think like, gosh, if I was lucky enough to have assistants, I would let them do everything. But now I kind of empathize. Like, it feels weird to even think about turning over, especially something like shading, which has a bit more uniqueness to it, a bit more of me to it than flatting. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm talking about this because this actually was on my mind most of the day Thursday. I was trying to talk myself into letting go of the shading part of comic making to let somebody else do it. And it was making me nervous. And I talk about at the end of the episode, I did actually do a lot of shading that day. And as I was doing it, I was just thinking, like, yeah, this adds a lot to the comic, so it feels important. But I do think somebody else can do it. I don't think I could ever let go of penciling, for sure. And I don't think I could ever let go of inking. Those two feel like they gotta be me. Like, they have to have my flair to it. They have to have my personality. I like doing those two things. And shading, I feel like, would be the third thing. Shading and, like, picking colors, I guess. But, like, shading is something that makes my comic mine, so it feels weird to let go of it, or to think about letting go of it. But also, he's flatting so fast, and my inking does go pretty quick. I feel like if we could really get into a groove, and I could get this, my part, his part figured out, I actually feel like we could average about one episode every 2 weeks, which would be a pretty fast pace for me. Faster if I wasn't working full-time, obviously, but yeah. So my plans for this weekend, actually, I have a long weekend because I have some time off. My plan is to actually create a style guide for how I shade. And I'm kind of excited to do that because I feel like it would be useful for myself, but I also feel like it won't be that hard to teach someone else how to do it. It might be a little hard for me to figure out how to explain it, but I don't think my shading is that hard. So, which brings us to, I guess you could say, the Patreon segment. It's going to be very tiny. I don't really have anything unique to show for Patreon. I did do a big post of my sketches and stuff, and pencils for episode 10 are on Patreon. But I think I'm going to create my style guide and like format it like a tutorial, and I am going to put it on Patreon, I think. I hope. If I get it done, it'll be on Patreon. So, yeah, if you don't make comics, I don't know, maybe if you're not an artist, the idea of letting go of one little stage of making art when you have so much work to do, it may sound weird to be stressed over that, but I was stressed on Thursday about, like, I would like the comic to be made faster, and I would like to do all of it, and those two things don't work. So here is to letting go of one more stage of comic making so that my readers can get comics in a somewhat timely fashion. Not even just for my readers, so that I can see the comic come together in a more efficient, less time-consuming way. I went and bought a set of perfect primaries. I have these colors, I believe, already, but I knew that my two lightest, B04? Yeah, these two that I have are going dry. I wanted a new red and this yellow. So I wanted to replace most of these. So I was like, just buy the set. because then I could get 20% off of all of them instead of 20% off of like one at Michael's. So yeah, bought those. What got done today? A lot got done today, that's what. Episode 9 is all inked and also all flatted. My colorist I finished inking this morning. My colorist finished flatting this afternoon, and I've started shading it, so episode 10 is super well underway. In addition, you guys probably saw the footage, I got some Inktober done. I've been doing Copic illustrations for Inktober, and I think I finally figured out something that I like about Copics, which is not layering them so much. I tend to layer them as if they're like paint, like opaque paint, and I keep trying to layer them to get the colors to change, and after a while that doesn't work so good. So I did this one today, and it's actually my favorite, I think, so far. And I think it came out well because I thought a little bit harder about the colors before I put them down, whereas with illustrations like this one, I just was thinking about it like as I went, which meant I did a lot of layering, and then I tried to do like some lifting with a lighter colored marker. I think this illustration came out fine, but yeah, this one with fewer layers I feel like is more what I'm going for. So this one also down here in the corner. Yeah, the ones that I like the least are the ones where I layered the most. That is a consistent theme. So anyway, I mentioned in a separate video, like not one of my vlog ones, but an Inktober video, that my goal is not to do one a day. My goal is to do 31 total. So I got 5, 10. I got 10 done, and today is only October 6th, so I'm 4 days ahead. But I think I'm gonna call it quits on filming for today's vlog. I do go babysit in about an hour or so, and I think until I go, I'm gonna just do the line art for my next batch of illustrations. I kind of have a theme going, in case you were wondering, in the batches of 5. This happened purely kind of just by chance, but the first 5 are basically the main cast of my comic, Dazer and Eleanor, and then, just for fun, I guess, the next 5 are marshals, so the folks that live in the desert and kind of run the desert, really. And the next one is going to be Melonians, and then the next, that's the country that Dazer is from, and then after that will be F. Yarens. I've barely done anything that, and then after that, I think I was just going to do more main characters. Would you believe I'm doing this like Dazer and Eleanor themed, and no characters have repeated yet. I feel like Dazer and Eleanor feels like a small cast because it is kind of focused around these folks, really. But now that I'm drawing them, I'm like, wow, I've made up so many people. Here's a tangent for you guys. Markers are kind of the best for when I don't actually feel... So for some reason, the limitations of Copics, the fact that you can't, blend them the way you do paint, you can't layer them the way you do paint. Like, paint has so much flexibility. There are some days where I just really like the limitations of markers. You can only do so much, so don't try so hard, I guess. The fact that markers are more limited than paint makes it feel low pressure to me, so. But I probably won't get to the marker stage. I'm just gonna do the outlines for now with these guys. You like this bag? I bought it from, it's a local store and they do handmade things. What are they called? Yes, it's a little local store we have here in Champaign, Illinois, called 10,000 Villages, and they are I'm reading from their website, a retailer selling fair trade crafts and housewares from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East. That's where it's from. It's apparently handmade, or fair trade, I guess. But it is the perfect height for Copics, so you put them in there. It can zip closed, obviously. But when I'm painting, or when I'm drawing with them, I open it up and I roll it like this. And then I can see everything. I do not like having them in an enclosed box where I can't see all the colors, obviously. It just makes it hard. So, anyway, yeah. I'm getting pretty rambly right now. After focusing on something like shading, my brain is so dead. So, let's just end the footage here. Put the studio vlog out of its misery. Okay, before I close the video, I completely forgot while I was monologuing about somebody else doing work for me. I need to give a special shout out to Patreon because we reached 20 patrons this week. Every time somebody signs up on Patreon, I have two reactions. The first one is, wait, what? Why did you do that? And then the second one is just pure gratitude. So yes, it feels like a huge milestone that we reached 20 patrons, and I am really strongly itching to put all of my Inktober illustrations into a little booklet zine thingy for Patreon. I just want to do something extra special for Patreon for reaching 20, because 20 is a big deal. So shout out to patrons. And then of course, as always, thank you to everyone who watches my videos and reads my comic. All support everywhere means so much to me. So yeah, but if you like these videos, don't forget to give it a like. That makes sense. And then if you really like them, don't forget to subscribe. I feel like I never tell you guys to do that, so I'm doing it now. Don't forget to subscribe. Alright, that ends this video. It can now be put out of its misery, and I will see you next week. Bye!